This is Nick back with another video, and this is the third day of working on my 66 Plymouth Fury. First day was the test run, which that went great. Second day was bleeding the brakes. Now the brakes are bled. There was a lot of leaks, but I took care of them, and now we're on the third day, and so far there's no leaks. Everything seems to be good. Brake pedal is pretty solid, so it's looking good. Now, today what I'm going to do is I'm going to be working on front wheel bearings and taking care of that. I think next video will be the neutral safety switch wire, so I don't have to jumper it anymore. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get into pulling these, well, at least the first front drum off, to see if it'll even come off. I still got to weld the studs, but I'm going to wait later on it. I think this one kind of came loose the other day, but I can press it back in. It's not super loose. This one, of course, is ridiculously loose. But yeah. So let's see how this goes. All right. So basically, you know, the manual calls them cups, but they're also, you can call them races, whatever you want to call them. But there's a special tool. There's one on the front, one on the back, and of course they come with the new bearings, and you want to replace them. So these are going to have to come out. And the thing is there's an actual tool to pull these out, some fancy tool, but of course, do I have that tool? No, I don't. So basically what you got to work with is something hard, like a screwdriver and stuff, and just slowly work it out until it falls out and just pound on it. And it might be a little bit cringe. I don't want to like nick the inside of the hub to where, you know, I put these new races in and, you know, it's not that good of a, you know, surface for them. So I don't know. I'm gonna keep pounding at it until I see some progress, and then I'll be back to show y'all when I'm actually getting somewhere, instead of wasting a bunch of video on pounding the shit out of this. So we'll see. I'll be right back. This is probably going to be the only one I do if I have to do it on the other side too, you know. Yep. Alright, I'll be right back. Alright, well, I'm actually making some progress with removing these races. It's coming out. I can actually feel it slipping. Oh, there it went. Of course, watch out for your fingers. There you go. I just dropped it. That is how you remove a bearing, cup, race, whatever you want to call it. And then you got to press the new one in. Which sucks. There, we got one. The outer one. Then there's the inner one. So I'll see about that one. See if we can get that out. I'm going to use a smaller tool for this one. But this one is going to be a challenge because it's not. Okay, so I'm back. And I got some wood. And of course, you know how this is. The stud situation on this drum is not that well. So I'm just hoping none of these new studs pop out while I'm trying to do this. There we go. Out. It is out. That is free. that. I'm not sure if this is original equipment, but it's definitely made in the USA. Timken. M11, LM11 910. I don't know if these bearings have ever been replaced before. We got quite a few things to do with this passenger side front drum. First, we got to remove the seal. Seal's still in there, still bearing in there. There's almost no grease in there. There we go. Fucking seal just flew up in the air. There we go. Junk seal. Going bye-bye. There's our junk bearing. Look at that shit. It's packed with sand. Ooh, that's fucking nasty in there. Nasty, nasty, nasty. It's coming out. I'm not having that. Yeah. Okay. Alright, it's out. Alright. So now I'm on to the bottom, the outer race. And definitely using this hammer next time, because this is a really good hammer. It leaves no nicks, and it takes it right out. No problem. There. Out. There we go. Just like that. Got that out. And I mean, maybe these aren't even that bad, but I don't know how long they've been used. But I don't care. I got new ones, so I'm going to install new ones. No nicks here. Which, I mean, this is my best drum, so I want to keep it the best. No nicks here. So there, now I gotta clean it out. That other one's got some nicks. So here's the current condition of the passenger side drum. A nice, beautiful centrifuge. It's even got a cool name to it. Drum. And yeah, I cleaned it the best I could. Got all that sand out because I'm not sure if there's any videos that covered this. But back when I was blasting the front suspension parts after I tore it down, I was blasting them, getting so that they would be ready for paint. I decided to experiment with dustless blasting. I got a power washer, got sand, got the actual tool adapter to connect to it, and I blasted this drum, and it turned out pretty good. And it didn't even flash rust right away, surprisingly. But over time, just leaving it in the garage, it kind of got a little bit of rust here and there, but it's not bad. I didn't have any plans on painting it. I was just testing because my current setup was a tent in the garage and I was just using aluminum oxide. And of course, there's assholes out there, but anyway, yeah, aluminum oxide, and of course that shit was clogging up the gun, and it was just becoming a pain in the ass to be working in a hot tent when your gun is on and off finicky because the aluminum oxide is clogging everything up that you touch. And even this airline had to take a while to recover from the aluminum oxide, because at one point this switch or whatever release thingamajig, that was full of aluminum oxide, and it was very hard to work with this hose. But Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, if you're going to use aluminum oxide, the best thing to use it is in a cabinet. Don't use it in some makeshift thing because it's going to make a big mess. I mean, that stuff is, to me, I would recommend you just get a cabinet to do the blasting in. But, yeah. So anyway, like I said, a dustless blast this, had no plans of painting it, didn't paint it, and now I got all the sand cleared out of it, and I'm going to be putting these races in, and then the bearings and the seal and all that, and this should be a ready to go drum. This is a really good drum. Now I want to find another one of these. The part number on here is 35839. So if you happen to have some used drums and one of them turns out to match the same part number, the same brand, then message me, because I would rather use another one of these. I mean the way they design this, so that they put these notches in here, so it made it real simple. There's a few nicks, but not a lot. It's not really a big deal. I'll just pound in the race, it should be fine. But yeah. But this other one got a shit ton more nicks because, you know, there wasn't really anything protecting it. But that, I'll probably sand that down or whatever. Maybe I won't give a shit. But yeah. So we'll see how that goes. Alright. So now I'm gonna be I gotta get my new races over here, ding dong me, but what my plan is to use these old races as a guide to put the new races in, and we'll see how that goes. Alright, so I pretty much got this drum ready to go. Drums are pretty easy on a press. Now I'm pressing these in because it's now easier. Pounding them out is a different story, but getting them in is a lot easier. So I'm going to get one of my set 2 ones. I'm going to grease the race a little bit. So you can see this is smaller. I'm just reversing my process, doing the outer one first, and then doing the inner one. That should be good enough. I'll see what happens, because the bad thing about wood is that, yeah, it does that shit. So I have to use something metal. That's how I can get it right. Yeah, I mean, that's good. Pretty good. I'm going to run it just one more time. Make sure. Okay, that's all the way down. Hopefully. Yeah, that's all the way. That's max. You gotta make sure to put it in right. Not put it in wrong. Only one way it can go in. The only scary part is about getting the old one stuck in there. But it should be fine. There's not going to be a lot before it bottoms out. Yeah, I mean, that's doing pretty good. pretty close to being in there. Just like extra shirty. Now this old one still has a lip on it, so it shouldn't be that hard to pop out, so I'll be right back. So, not too scary as I thought. It's coming out. It's just, you lightly tap it and it'll come out. There we go. Just light tap. There you go. There's a fresh installed race. That is perfect. Of course I did grease it so that it'll go in there easy, but this old race, no problem. Now I just gotta do the reverse. I just gotta do the opposite with this one. But this one's going to be a little bit more deeper, so I don't think two of them will fit in there. So I think this will be, it'll be fine here. Got some nicks. Not gonna bother sand those down there. So here we are again. Now this time I got it raised up a little bit higher, and I'm going to put a metal bar in there, and that's going to level it out, so then I can take the used old race and press the rest of it in, the new one in. So and it's pretty much ready to go. The rear one just seems to fit right in. I'm still going to get that bar on it, so then I can press the rest of it in. Sure I took care of that, no problem. And I did. I just take this old one. It's going to be a little bit of a challenge. Just want to make sure this is on right, that's going on. Just making a bit of contact, which I don't like. So it kind of found its way in, so that's nice to know. Okay, so that knows this side here is really deep. Just want to make sure, be careful, you don't crack them or something crazy like that. Yeah, this new one is in, so it got hot all of a sudden. This is, I guess the humidity came up. I think I got that all the way down now. But of course, I want to make sure if I can just break this off. I heard a crack or anything. It was just again. I did go down a bit. So I'm going to investigate this. All right. So I'm back again, and now this is the 4th day, basically. Yeah, but anyway, last night I finished the passenger side drum, but I messed up on the grease seal, and I wasn't able to save it, so I had to use my other grease seal, and now I'm stuck waiting on another grease seal for the other drum that will come tomorrow. But yeah, and I'll show y'all when I'm working on the other drum how you properly install the seal. Now, the grease seals are different for drum brakes compared to disc brakes. Disc brakes, they make the surface on the grease seal nice and flat, so there's no question about which part of it is supposed to be flush to the hub. You know, it's just a nice flat thing. You can put it in there, no problem. But with these grease seals for these drums, they have a little lip on them. So they got an edge, and then they got this lip sticking out of them. And I wasn't 100% sure on whether the whole thing is supposed to be completely flush with the hub, or if part of it was supposed to be sticking out. I had no idea. I should have used the old grease seal on this drum that you're looking at as an example, but I failed to do that, so I messed that seal up. That's the end of that story with that. But other than that, I packed all the bearings and stuff. And then another thing I found out is this spindle nut. This spindle nut actually, so in the 21st century, everybody is used to a hub nut that you have to crank down to fucking 200 foot-pounds. And so here I am used to that, and I'm doing it on this car, but actually this spindle nut has no torque. It's not designed to be torqued down. What it actually is basically an adjusting screw. So you're supposed to have it loose, but then adjust it so that there's no play in the drum. But if you crank it all the way down, then you get what you're seeing here. I can't move this. So this nut here is not supposed to be cranked down, but the threads on it were dirty. So now I'm taking this back out, going to clean the threads up. This retainer right here locks the nut in place so that it won't move, even though it is technically loose. So yeah, and then of course on top of that retainer is in a cotter pin that goes through, yeah, the spindle shaft, and that's how that works. And so the typical thing you use with this is a wrench, 1 1/16 wrench, and that's how I'm able to get mine on and off. But then if you loosen this up a bit, I'm also thinking maybe that it's a little bit because the shoes might be a little too far out. What I figured out in here is this is kind of different. I'm not sure if this is just a difference in time how they did things, but apparently there is a plug on the back, and you take that out to adjust the brake shoe adjustment screw. But on newer ones with my Chevy van stuff or Corsica, they actually have a space in the drum here, a hole in the drum where you can adjust it. That's from what I remember, but I don't know. But this was moving when I first put it on. Maybe it's a little bit stuck because I cranked it down, left it that way. So I'm going to clean this nut out because it's full of sand. Because like I said, I sandblasted this. Well, dustless blasted, technically. I'm gonna, this other thing with dumbass paper towels. I'll loosen this up a bit. Get the slide there, now it rotates. And so this nut is supposed to be on just enough so that there's no play. This is apparently with these nuts, you have to. This is how you basically adjust the wheel bearings. There's an actual wheel bearing adjustment process. And of course, it's also a little bit rough because I don't know, maybe there's dirt on the pads and stuff that are creating a friction. So you basically get it finger tight. Until you're not feeling any play in it. So there we go. I mean, that's good as I get there without adjusting the adjuster screw thingamajig. So I'll be right back when I got the hole figured out. So right in there, I'm not sure if y'all can see it, but right where my finger is, there's a plug here. And you gotta pull that out. There we go, finally. You can see there's a hole off to the left and one off and a plug off to the right. Both of those holes are filled with a plug. And they basically put two plugs in there, so it'd be like universal or some shit. So I guess you can put it on the other side or whatever, or you can flip the adjusting screw around, whatever. But I'm going to leave it off for now because the problem was it was too brittle from the outside to take off, so I had to push it from the inside. And so far it survived that. And I'm definitely going to make sure these are adjusted before I ever put that back in. That's final. I think, you know, the back probably has them too, but I don't know if I'm going to mess with those shoes because it seems fine back there. Those wheels spin. There's not much of a problem, so we'll just leave it at that. But maybe I'll have to adjust them or something. But definitely the front up here, since this brake drum is not turning that well, I'd like it to be turning better. So I'm going to go ahead and put the drum back on and adjust it. So here we are again on a fifth day, of course. Hopefully this could be the last day for getting the drums done. The other day I was working on this one and I ran into an issue with it where it's like it will go on there, the bearings, everything's great, but it's just that when you spin it, it makes contact with something, and I'm not sure exactly what it is, and so I'm going to be still working on this one, trying to make this one absolutely right. You know, because this track here rides on there, and there's something in here that keeps making contact with this drum or this track, whatever, and it just makes a scraping noise when you spin it, and it's not supposed to be like that. It's supposed to be nice and smooth. You should be able to spin it and not have any contact with anything. So I don't know if maybe it's an issue, it's a defect with the drum, and that's been that way since that drum was replaced. I don't know, but I'm working on. I'm going to be working on this drum here. I'm going to be putting the races in. Well, sanding it down first, sanding the rough edges down, because apparently, you know, like I've said before, don't use punches on these. Use a soft thing like the end of a hammer, you know, like what I was using the other day. Just something more soft, maybe. I don't know. I saw a guy using a breaker bar, you know, just to take them out. But yeah, the other thing, of course, is that since, you know, this is most likely an original drum, you know, original Chrysler drum, you know, they didn't think to, like what Centrifuge did, they actually put in notches for the tool so that you wouldn't mess things up so bad pounding it out. But with this one, it's different. The notches weren't there, so that could have contributed to the issues. Yeah, so pretty much enough explaining. I'm going to go ahead and just sand it down and get it on a press and press the new races in and see how that goes. So this drum pretty much cleaned up pretty fast. All the junk is pretty much out of it. So I'm going to load it on the press. Perfect. That's all bottomed out. I think we're pretty good. Alright, so I fixed the issue. Apparently the race didn't go in level, so part of it was still not all the way seated. But I fixed that with just using the hammer and the old race again, and just tapped along, and it went in. I don't know. For some reason, these drums seem to be well more adapt to hammers and punches than presses. You know, you think, oh, well, you put it on the press, it'll work. But for some reason, the press just wasn't able to fix that issue, and okay, maybe it's my fault a little bit because it's not 100. It was 100% level when it went in, but I mean, how level can you get them trying to get them in? You know, you just gotta do what you do and press them in. So I got that one, and now I'm gonna get the other one in. So usually it's like, I guess, combination, use a press to get them started, and then if they give you issues, then you use a hammer. That's good. Not a lot, actually. Alright, and of course, like I said, this is the easiest. The last race, the big race, is like the easiest one, so I always recommend do the little one first, because that one is most complicated, and then the big one, do that one last, because that's the easiest, because it usually goes in no problem, and you don't even have to balance on the studs to get the other one out. You got the whole drum level on the ground, and you can just punch it out. But you still, of course, you gotta be careful. You don't want to fuck it up, and of course, you also want to make sure which ring you're pushing on. You're not pushing it the wrong ring. Alright, so I'm back with the oil seal. I'm trying to position the camera here. This stupid thing. Can't see where the hell. There we go. Anyway, so I'm going to show y'all how to properly install one of these grease seals, so that and specifically on a drum, because all the other videos I found on YouTube were about disc brake rotors. Yeah, we got another prick who just needs to freaking disturb everybody with his asshole car. Anyway, yeah. So I can go ahead and start putting it in. So I didn't realize that the oil seals, I had gotten Timken bearings and National grease seals. And I ended up ordering a Timken grease seal, and that's how I found out. It's ridiculous, but anyway, so you can see that. This metal, so here's the rubber ring that goes down into the hub like this, and then there's this outer metal ring. This outer metal ring here that I'm running my finger across goes flush with the hub, and then the actual, this metal ring on top of it that's sticking out here, that is supposed to be above, that's supposed to stick out, and this seal is never supposed to make contact with the bearing. If it pins the bearing down, then you have it installed wrong. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and put it in. It's not a big deal to put it in. You just pound it in. That should be good. That fit in there perfectly. So that's how you do it. And that bearing is supposed to be in there. So if you take the drum off and you find the bearing on the spindle, then you obviously got a grease seal problem, because that's not supposed to happen. The grease seal is supposed to prevent that bearing from coming out. But the outer, smaller bearing, that is supposed to pop out. So if it falls out, that's normal when you pull the drum off. It's kind of a pain in the ass, though. You know, you kind of take for granted today how we just have one assembled bearing unit that you just bolt on. That's all you do. You don't mess with grease or anything. You just put it on and you go. But in this case, back in the 60s, it was like you had to have this bearing on the inside and had to have this bearing on the outside, and it had all to be greased. And so every time you took your drum off, you always ended up with grease in your hands, because the friggin' front bearing would fall out and you have to pick it up, and it's nasty. But that's how that's done. Now the real test is seeing if this thing will spin no problem without making contact with anything on the spindle. So I'll go ahead and move over to that. Alright, so now we're going to slide this drum on. It works. So we got a little bit of rough contact. Let's see what that's about. I think it's just this adjusting screw. See if that makes the difference. brakes. Always gonna be a pain in the ass. I'll be right back. So after a shit ton of troubleshooting, I finally figured out why my brake drums rub so badly and make such an awful noise when they're hand turned. Okay, so I'm describing hand turned. Now, because I did read a forum about the same problem with this guy's Valent, and everybody's complaining, oh, where's it come from, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, when I turn it by hand, it does this rubbing noise. And I took the star wheel, the adjusting wheel, whatever you want to call it, for the drums, and I cranked it all the way down. So there is no 100% possible way that the surface, which is this, the surface of the pads, is making any contact with the inside of the drum. Well, what else could it be where the scraping's coming from? Okay, there's a track that the drum goes into on the backing plate, but that track is clean, and there doesn't seem to be any contact in that either. Well, turns out that when you're dealing with brake drums, there's different sizes. And there's also different size brake shoes. So, here's the old ones I took off the driver's side. Now, don't forget, I never touched these shoes. I never messed with the drums other than I had the studs break, whatever. But other than that, I didn't even take those things off. I just thought everything was a-okay, and that I just had to do bearings, and the drums would go back on, no problem. Well, it turns out that there was a problem that was done by a previous owner that I hadn't figured out until now, 3 years later after I got the car. And based on the fact that the original tires are from 2006, most likely this guy was driving like this with the fucking drums scraping and making such horrible noise. So, I'm gonna demonstrate, if I can right now. See that? This brake shoe right here is 2 3/4. I measured this shoe and it's 3 inches. Now, I have the original 66 Chrysler parts catalog. The parts catalog for my model car specified only one brake shoe size, which was 2 3/4. But when you go to the parts store and you would, you put in 66 Fury and you look up brake shoes, 2 sizes would come up, 3 inch and 2 3/4. So, of course, I measured these, the original ones that were on there, and they're 3 inches. And so I'm like, well, there's my problem. I got a width problem. And what's going on is, since these things are so wide, they're making contact with the inside of the drum near the hub. And that's what's causing that scraping. So now that I got these that are literally slightly a bit shorter in width, and honestly, this is the original size. I think this is the only size for this car. And that the 3 inches, I don't think the 3 inches are original. It's some kind of mod. I don't know how 3 inches came to be, but the only way I would be able to use 3 inches is if I got deeper drums. And I want to keep the drums I have right now, so I downgraded my shoes. So I'm going to go ahead and put them in and see if shit changes. And it should. Because I did a lot of research off camera about why the hell they would be doing this. Alright. Yeah, so it's a very late afternoon and the sun is going down, so I'm going to try to at least do this side and test this to make sure I'm not wrong and that there's something else. I even took my brand new bearings that I had installed into consideration. But to me, they were installed right. There's no issue with the way they're installed. So all the races are seated properly. Now the only difference is that on these brake pest shoes, they put this pin in the backside facing shoe, because if y'all don't know, the correct way is this up here goes in the front and this goes in the back with the more padding on the top. I don't know why it's like prickly for a moment. We got light, because the light around here is always a piece of shit. So I'm going to use the last 8 minutes of this, and I got everything a-okay now. So these shouldn't pop out. I should just be able to put this adjusting screw on here. That should hold. Now I gotta remember which way these dumbass things even fucking went. This part, for sure, I definitely know goes up here. That's not a big issue. That goes like that. This bow tie goes up here. And you run the cable like this. It's weird why the bottom is sliding like that. That's weird. Let's see if this wheel will rotate. This problem is what happens is you get grease on here and it gets all over your fucking hands. And I'm not missing anything in here. That is maxed out all the way back. So now we're going to take our drum that's meant to be over here, and I mean, I guess you can tell there's a good gap. And we're going to see if our problem has been solved. So right away, it goes right on, and then of course you want to That's packed enough. This is a official test with everything in place as it normally would. And there's June beetles around here making a bunch of fucking drama, flying out of fucking nowhere. Now, if you hear that, that noise right there is pad to drum. Now, another thing, of course, I don't have a shit ton of experience with drums. Even if I crank that star all the way back, it doesn't 100% guarantee that the pad is still going to be a little bit over thick and it's going to touch the inside. But if I want to, I can adjust this. There's no play on it right now, but if I want to crank that off a bit, my back drums are doing the same thing, but it's not like a. But the other sound was very distinct. It was very scrape noise, and this sounds a lot better. And okay, back in the day, of course, any boomer who has worked in the automotive industry can tell you that they used to take the brake shoes, put them on a machine, and they did what they called arcing the shoes, which cut them down to match the drum. And of course they learned the hard way that, well, the shit was full of asbestos, and they breathed that all in the friggin' 70s and whenever they stopped doing it, and up until then, but they stopped doing that, obviously, and now it's just like, what do? Well, you put the new shoes on and you let them wear in, and you can still adjust it out, but there's going to be a little bit of that, but eventually it's going to wear down to fit the drum. Now, of course, this drum could be a little bit warped because maybe it's, obviously, like I said, if it had been on the road before, obviously, then it most likely, this could have heated up and changed shape a little bit. But of course, yet again, the new brake pad is going to make up for that. And eventually it's going to be a lot smoother. But this is a lot better than what I have on the other side, which I could do a comparison right now, and I'll go ahead and do that. I'll go on the other side, put the drum on, and see what y'all think. But I'm gonna leave that for adjusting now, which maybe it doesn't even need to get adjusted. I don't know, whatever. But we'll see. Okay, so I'm going to throw this drum on and show you all the difference of this noise. Threads are a lot smoother on this spindle. So, see what I'm talking about? That is not, that is the width of the brake pad. That's not the pad of the brake pad. You want the pad of the brake pad, not the fucking width, the actual metal edge of the shoe itself scraping up against the drum. So there's an example right there. Yeah, man, that is definitely a lot quieter. So I'll be doing this side off camera because it's just, the space is way too tight here for, you know, I don't want to be bumping into the camera and stuff. And I mean, it's pretty simple. You already, you know, I showed this back side here, but the lighting was poor and stuff. And I mean, it doesn't really matter. Y'all pretty much seen all the other drums except, you know, me do the rest of them. So it just doesn't, it doesn't matter. I don't give a damn right now. Yeah, and it's going to be probably 10 times comedy hour because I'm probably going to be a shit ton mad when I have to bang into a fucking shelf taking these pads with these shoes off. And then, of course, remembering how everything goes because this is backwards. And that pin on the new ones doesn't really seem to phase the pad. Everything on that side sounds normal. So that should wear in. And I'll definitely show y'all when it's worn in how it sounds like, because it's going to sound a lot better. You know, and I don't know, maybe in the future I might just get 2 brand new drums that are nice and deep, 11-inch brake drums that are nice and deep, and get some nice 3-inch pads so I have the best, you know, ability. I got the maxed out drum brakes. I don't think, you know, I don't know, is there such thing as a 12-inch drum brake? I mean, when did they stop making the sizes? But of course they made 11 is obviously the highest for this car because this car is a C body. They're the fattest freaking boats on the road, so they're not like little darts or little Valiants with little 9-inch dumb brakes or a 10-inch, you know, whatever. But yeah, anyway, enough explaining. So there we go. We got the tire on there. I'm going to go ahead and spin it. Look at that. Ain't that just great? So maybe, definitely this week, probably tomorrow, this thing might be on the ground. It just, the next I got to do is that neutral safety switch wire. Of course, because I want to do that while I have the car up right now. And then once I got it on the ground, I can go ahead and do everything, such as torque, you know, do the final adjustments on the front suspension, and then adjust the brake shoes so that they make good contact with the drum. So I'll see y'all, well, I guess when this thing's on the ground. Whatever, I guess when I'm doing the neutral safety switch wire. So peace.